When I was at some point given an opportunity to be the president of this country, because I was beginning to implement what I fought for, what I took decision to die for. Once I started, I was criticized. Firstly, a very funny president came in, very funny man, who came from the working class, as they call it, right? Whom today is always a mystery. How did he emerge up to becoming the president when there are people who had been there all the time? Are issues one day we might want to talk about, and I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about what made me to take a decision to leave the ANC, not to leave it as a member, not to vote for it. Not to vote for it. And I made it very clear, even to them, that I'm remaining the ANC, but I'm not going to vote for the ANC. I'm going to vote for the new party, Umkhonto Wesizwe Party. I'm sure if we were to tell the truth, MK is the youngest political party, just 1 year old, but it has been able to attract the feelings and the wishes of the South African population. The very fact that we are now a formal opposition, that tells you a very good story about Umkhonto Wesizwe. To take over the governing of the country, that is our immediate objective that we want to make as soon as possible. There are things that are written in the serious documents that we, when we are in charge of the country, this is what we will do. The Freedom Charter, for an example, is a key document. If you look at it seriously, it was equal rights that were attended to in the Freedom Charter. What the Freedom Charter says was never attended to. And you would have felt, therefore, that with time we are going to address the issue. But the issue was never addressed up to this day. It's now 30 years. When I was at some point given an opportunity to be the president of this country, because I was beginning to implement what I fought for, what I took decision to die for. Once I started, I was criticized.
Some even put allegations of corruption under your tenure.
Exactly. And not a single one has ever produced even a stick of match that I stole anywhere.
Even with the revelations that came out from the State Capture Commission of Inquiry?
There's nothing, even the man who was reading it has said today it was wrong. That tells you that everything that was done was cooked against me, probably, and other people. Because up to now, with regard to Zuma, nobody has said, this is what Zuma did, which was wrong. Nothing. I have even gone to prison when I've never even appeared before a magistrate, let alone the judge. I served. It was all cooked. So I don't want to get into that one. I'm just telling you why I'm moving.
Who cooked it?
Those who are in power.
You are a political figure that has sources all around the country. You would have insight and some intelligence as to who cooked it.
I'm saying it was cooked by those who are in charge. I don't want to be counting names of people, how many. That's not the issue for me. They know themselves. And those who are helping them, writing news and everybody, they also know.
Let me get this right before we move on to the next point, His Excellency. Are you saying the ANC that you joined before, during the apartheid era and coming into the democratic dispensation, is different from the ANC that you see today?
I was going to come to that, but since you want it now, yes, ANC that I joined is not the ANC that I left. It was a different kind of an ANC. I can say painful things about it. I don't think that is the way to deal with the matter. But to answer your question briefly, yes, the ANC that I joined, that I was prepared to die, that I went in prison for 10 years for, I went into exile for 14 and a half years. It's not the ANC that I left a few years ago. It is a fact. I was trying to make the picture become very clear. That when I joined the ANC, I was clear that I'm prepared to die to liberate my country. And once my country is liberated, how this country will be, how it will be governed, is as clear as anything. I don't want to tell you many other things. Being the former president, I was in a conference where I pulled my hand to make a contribution. And deliberately, I was avoided until I could not put across what I thought. That was not the ANC. In the ANC, every member had the right to speak his mind or her mind. That's no longer the ANC I can talk about. So I don't want to dwell in those because it will make me discuss too many other things that are not that important.
Okay.
Because what I'm trying to say is that the reason why I took a decision is because the ANC was no longer the ANC I knew.
So what is the difference?
I could no longer put an opinion, even if when I put my opinion, it was put aside. And therefore, that is not the ANC. Was not the believing of the ANC that you can be deprived of your views as it is. I wouldn't want to get into that because the point I thought it was important was to say we reached a point where you could no longer do what you were doing when we were ready to die because we were no longer allowed to speak. The kind of leadership that emerged were wrong leadership. Perhaps if you'll be still around when I write my book, you must read it. I might be saying more things in details. What happened to the African National Congress of Tambo Mandela.
So what is the difference between the ANC then and the MK party?
No, before getting there, I want you to head it nicely because you just know that and not know any other thing. I made all the efforts. I did not just walk away from the ANC because I still wanted to correct it because it was an organization I trusted. But the people who were leading were no longer interested in that. They were doing another type of running of the country outside the serious policies of the ANC. And I could not stomach it.
Is that the current leadership of the ANC that you speak of, that you're referencing?
Absolutely. I'm speaking of them. Speaking of them is just 2 years I've left them. If not 2, I'm getting to the second year, first year. That is what I'm talking about. They moved off the policies, the things that the ANC was established to do. And they were no longer listening if we wanted to say, can you put this thing right? I then took a decision to continue fighting for a complete free South Africa because the ANC was no longer the ANC. We now call it Gogo. You know what it means.
Grandmother.
Grandmother, exactly. Yes. Because, in other words, implementing the policies of the ANC was no longer the issue. The issue was to reverse it, including the poorness in the leadership itself. What they were saying, what they were talking about was no longer what we know.
It's interesting that you mention the policies of the ANC, which is now in a government of national unity with the Democratic Alliance that has different policies from the ANC. What do you make of this government of national unity? Is it reminiscent of that negotiation period which you alluded to, which you mentioned as a soft agreement, so to speak?
I wish I was just talking, not you asking many questions, because I'm coming to all of those questions. But there are good things we may not understand. Because if we talk about government of national unity of today, we are talking about many things that happened even before the ANC chose to take the enemy to be the comrade. Because if we jump, and I don't think we are going to get what I would want to, why I took a decision. The decision I took is not a small decision, it's a serious decision. I wouldn't have taken it. I respected the ANC. The very fact that I've said I remain a member of the ANC is a story of its own. Why would I do so? I thought I would go through a little bit of that so that when we come to this, we understand exactly what has happened. Firstly, a very funny president came in, very funny man, who came from the working class, as they call it, right? Whom today is always a mystery. How did he emerge up to becoming the president when there are people who had been there all the time? Are issues one day we might want to talk about. And I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about what made me to take a decision to leave the ANC. Not to leave it as a member, not to vote for it. Not to vote for it. And I made it very clear, even to them, that I'm remaining the ANC, but I'm not going to vote for the ANC. I'm going to vote for the new party, Umkhonto Wesizwe Party, because they have deviated from the policies of the ANC.